All right, y'all, we're going to go ahead and get started. I know a few people are still going through the food line, and please help yourself continue to get food and drinks. I want to first thank everyone for being here. Obviously, this has been a tough last few days. And if you wouldn't mind joining me just for a moment, I'd like us to have a moment of silence for our friends and neighbors and coworkers in Western North Carolina and also in South Carolina. Thank you. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. We have an exciting group of panelists here today with us. So what I'm going to do, just to kind of give you an overview of what we're going to do today, I'll introduce the panelists, and then they will go through a presentation, and then we'll have question and answers session at the end. And I would also like to recognize Representative John Torbett is here with us today. Thank you for being here. Also, Gastonia City Council member Jennifer Stepp. Thank you for being with us. And not sure if the mayor of Gastonia, he is on his way, so he will be joining us shortly. And also, I'd like to do a shout out to Hans Kissel. Nick DeFradius is here with Hans Kissel, and they sponsored our lunch. So if we could give them a round of applause, I appreciate it. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this. We're going to try to keep this to an hour, so I appreciate you bearing with us. A late start. Some folks were tied up in traffic. So our first panelist is Solange Trikonowitz. Didn't do too bad on that one. Yari Maddie well, I'm messing this up. Yari Maddie, I apologize. Meto. There, sorry. Try to mutilate your name. We have Henry Lobb, Danielle Buckins, and Emily Hansley. And let me back up here a minute. So Christian is with, Solange is with, I'm a little out of order here, with EDPNC. And Yari is with Premix USA. Henry is with Avazon Young. Danielle is with Duke Energy. And Emily is with Gaston College. Christian Tonstens is with Lindell Telecom. I apologize. I have too many notes here and too many pieces of paper, so I apologize. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with Solange. Thank you. You're coming up here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. So again, my name is Solange Trikonowitz. I am a business recruitment manager with the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. Real quickly, I'll spend just a little bit of time talking about who we are as EDPNC, and then the rest of the presentation, I'll talk a little bit about why North Carolina is a great place to do business, and looking specifically at why our manufacturers have chosen North Carolina as their home. And I'll also talk a little bit about some of the highlights of our year in 2023 and what we're looking forward to in 2024. So EDPNC is the state's economic development agency. We are a private-public partnership contracted through the Department of Commerce to do 5 things. Number 1 is recruit new business to the state of North Carolina. Number 2 is to make sure that our existing industries continue to grow. Number 3 is small business advising. Number 4 is international trade and export. And number 5 is tourism. So all of these things hoping to grow the economy of North Carolina. So 3 main reasons why I think North Carolina is the best place to do business. And you'll hear a variety of things, and all of those things are true in terms of reasons to do business in North Carolina, but I've chosen 3. Number 1 is location, number 2 is friendly business climate, and number 3 is our workforce. So starting with location, North Carolina is about equidistant between Washington, D.C. and Atlanta and Florida. The population of North Carolina is about 10 million total, but within an 11-hour drive, you can reach 150 million customers. you'll see that in terms of accessibility, North Carolina is very well positioned with our roadway system, with our 4 international airports, 2 deep sea ports. That means that connecting people and products is very easily, both within the state as well as globally. As it relates to our friendly business climate, North Carolina has long been known to have a very strong economy. Our economy has continued to grow. Our jobs have continued to grow, and in fact, outpacing the national average. But truly, it's the friendly business climate that makes the difference. So you'll see North Carolina's corporate income tax rate is 2.5%. Next year, that'll drop to 2.25%. And by 2030, that'll drop to 0%. So makes a lot of sense why a lot of businesses are going to give North Carolina a good long look as they're trying to decide where to establish a U.S. headquarters, expand their business, expand a manufacturing facility here in the state of North Carolina. To note, this is a bipartisan effort to keep our corporate income tax levels pretty low. And again, there's a lot of interest, both from the public sector as well as the private sector, obviously, to make sure that we remain a business-friendly state. The last thing of note is our top-notch workforce, and I think that that cannot be understated. So I mentioned before, overstated. I mentioned before that we're a state of 10 million. Our total labor force, which is, let's say, folks between the ages of 16-ish to 64-ish, is about 5.2 million. Of those, we have the largest manufacturing workforce in the Southeast at about 474,000 people who are either in or looking for manufacturing jobs. That's huge. I don't have to tell you all. I do real quickly want to note on some of our wins from 2023. Last year, we announced about 10,000, almost 11,000 new jobs, investment at almost $5 billion between our new business and existing industries teams. And you'll notice here that of the 54 projects that our new businesses brought in, and you can kind of see it, manufacturing touches most of these in some way or another. Automotive and motor vehicles, energy, food and beverage is largely becoming one of the largest industry sectors in North Carolina. A lot of that touching manufacturing, biotechnology and pharmaceuticals, aerospace and aviation. So North Carolina has long been primed as a great spot for manufacturers to move to and to grow. I do want to call out our existing industries team as well, who specifically work to make sure that those businesses that are here continue to grow. And in fact, in economic development, the majority of your growth is going to happen from existing industries rather than new business. So between those together, really making differences within North Carolina, calling attention to the folks who choose to make things in the state, the people who are really boots on the ground, making all of our lives a little bit easier. That's all I have right now. It's a quick snippet of EDPNC, but I'll be happy to entertain questions after the rest of the panel is good.
All right, next we're going to have Yarimati Meto from Premix.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Yarimatti Mehto. It's a difficult Finnish name. People call me Jamie here, so it's much easier. So I'm running the Premix USA operations here in the United States, or actually building the operations because we have just established our operations here recently. So let me see which way. I was planning to cover 4 topics. So first of all, what Premix is. The award, this is very important for us. And why do we build the manufacturing plant in the US and in Gaston County? Talk about a little bit the journey to the US, North Carolina and Apple Creek. It hasn't been an easy journey. That's why I want to share some of these highlights. And why did we choose especially Apple Creek and in North Carolina? Solange here is probably emptied my basket but still I want to repeat the same things. So Premix, we are a Finnish family-owned private company established in 1980. We have had a manufacturing only in Finland so far, and this is our first international plant. We also have a sales office in Shanghai, China, for some 10 years now, and now we are then expanding to the United States. We have been delivering products to the US since 1990, but this is now our first plant. And we are very much serious about sustainability. So sustainability is in the core of our strategy and whatever we do. This is something that makes a difference in the company Premix. It's our people. We have about 110 people, 100 in Finland, 30 now in the United States. Very passionate, following our values, but also highly educated. And this is one of the core factors why we have been so successful. If you also watch closely the faces over here, do you recognize something for a manufacturing company? A lot of women, and that's probably one of the key differences we make on the marketplace. Our salespeople especially are mostly women. Think about technically educated, smart, empathetic women facing the customers. That's the key success factors. Not to downplay any male here, but that's the key strength for our business. We are mainly in the 5 different sectors. So automotive, where we are delivering materials, electrically conductive plastics for filler pipes and filler necks, where explosive or flammable liquids are handled, because our materials take the risk out of the spark, the electrostatic discharge, in order to avoid fires. Diagnostics. This is the business why we are in the US. So we are providing materials for the pipette tips, for electrically conductive pipette tips, which are used for all kinds of sensitive diagnostics in hospitals, and especially this was very important during the COVID. So actually, I could even say that we saved the world, because we are the leading company in providing the material for diagnostics pipette tips material, and during the COVID, we were the only company who could supply 100% what the customers needed. And that's why we are actually here in the US. I'll tell you more in a while. Electronics packaging. So sensitive electronics can be destroyed if the electrostatic discharge cannot be dissipated from the materials. So that's a growing area also in the US. You probably heard that US government is talking about offshoring a lot of the chip manufacturing, electronics manufacturing into US, because main part of your components are manufactured in China and Taiwan, and they are politically risky areas nowadays. Healthcare and well-being. There are a lot of sensitive electronics in the healthcare systems, which also requires static dissipation. And then a lot of industrial applications for flammable liquids, gases, gunpowders, missiles, whatever, where the static discharge could cause a catastrophe. So we are a niche player in the plastics market, but very important player on the global scale. Only less than 5% of our products are sold in Finland. So we are truly international company. Okay, then the award. So why we are here? So we actually got an award from the US government. So we got $80 million to build this brand new, fantastic plant in Apple Creek, corporate center. These are pictures from May when we had our office opening. The plant is still under construction, but the office is open and kind of the surroundings is now finalized. And as you can see, we have the 3 wonderful, beautiful flags over there. So we got $80 million from the DoD to build this plant. And the reason for this is that there is not enough supply of these critical materials for the diagnostics value chain. So US is very much, or was, and it still is, very much dependent on export from all over the world. And of course, during the crisis, you cannot always rely on even on your neighbors. So you have to be self-sustained. So that's why we got the grant or the award, and we are very happy. It was a kind of a lottery win for the kind of a company we are. And by the way, we are the first and only Finnish company who have got this type of a grant from DoD. Maybe there are in the future more. This is the plant. I will show you a short video. Enjoy. Okay, our marketing department has made a good job, haven't they? Oops, next one. So a few words about the journey. So this project was actually started already 21. So there was a lot of planning involved before we entered the US. We didn't have any company here. I was the #1 employee in the company. We didn't have any service network here, basically nothing. And you can imagine what were the negotiations with the US Air Force, which was running the project at that time, the number of documents we had to review, all the different purchasing rules of a US government. It wasn't an easy task, but we made it, and of course the award was quite substantial, so it was all worth it. A lot of planning, site hunting. I'm talk about the site hunting a little bit, and then we ended up buying the site from Donnie, Danny somewhere here. Yes, and he was actually the first person I met one early morning in Apple Creek. I guess it was 8 o'clock in the morning. The meeting was agreed the day before, and there Danny was, and immediately, I think, we clicked. So what we are doing now, of course, we are building the business. We are currently finalizing the equipment installation. We are starting the plant startup operations in January. We are developing the supply chain, organizing raw materials locally, localizing our product portfolio based on the US raw materials. I've hired 4 business development sales managers who are actively expanding the business beyond the diagnostics area. And hopefully next April, May, we can push the button, start, and we are up and running. And then it's my time to take the boat back to Finland. So why did we choose Apple Creek and North Carolina? As said, Solange was talking about that. It was very much going into the data. I'm an engineer in education, so I like data, all types of matrices, weighing different topics. It's really about the location in different perspectives, roads, rails, harbors, people, where the future of the manufacturing seems to be, and narrowing that down by topic. And we ended up having a huge spreadsheet of data, weighing everything and then looking at the points. And that's how we narrowed down into North Carolina. South Carolina was quite long in the picture with one of their sites. Unfortunately, it boiled down to one particular thing. Do you know what was that? Huh? No. In Finland, we love taxis because we get back what we get in Finland. So what would it be? The most important thing in the business? It's the relationship and the people. So it was really the people we found around us, supporting, helping us, giving the additional people to expand our network. So I have learned a long time ago that decide with cool head, implement with warm heart. So you need people. You need good people with good heart. And that's what we found here in North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, Jari-Matti. Apple Creek and their facility in Apple Creek really is beautiful. If you have time when you leave here, it's 1.5 miles. Go out, take a left. You'll take a left right onto Apple Creek Parkway. You'll see their facility there. Hans Kissel is right across the street, who sponsored the lunch today. So just drive through there real quick if you get a chance. We're actually touring Hans Kissel and G&T on Thursday. If you'd like, we still have room, I think, Richard, to fit you in there. So we'd love to have you. Next, we have Christian with Lindahl.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christian Tankstens. I'm CEO of Lindahl Telecom. We are in the telecom industry. We are producing microducts. This is microducts. If you cannot see it, it's all right. It's microducts. So it's small ducts, okay? So that's essentially what you blow fiber optic cables into. And we're a fairly newly established company about 5 years ago in Denmark. We had 2 employees to start with. Now we have 50 and grossing around $45 million annually. So we've been off to a rocket start, and this is the first US expansion. So how did we end up in North Carolina and in Gaston County? Let me see here, this is it. Well, I want to take you back about 4 years ago when the pandemic hit and everyone from one day to another had to go from full on-site to 100% off-site. So what you're seeing here is a teacher trying to log on to Zoom, Teams, whatever platform it was, and trying to teach the students. And I chose this picture because we heard a lot of stories about people going to the local church or local McDonald's or public school or something like that, sitting in the parking lot having virtual meetings for a long time. And that was a bit a surprise to us, because in Scandinavia, and I hope I speak for you as well, we've always seen the US as the most innovative economy in the world. So having that gap in digital equity was a surprise to us. Oh, here we go. So back then, it was estimated that roughly 42 million Americans have not access to broadband access. You can, of course, look at North Carolina specifically, but it's kind of almost all over the US that a good substantial amount of people are lacking high-speed internet. So in order to mitigate that, the US Congress, amongst other things, passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill about 3 years ago. And part of that appropriated some $65 billion over a 10-year span to upgrading, modernizing the broadband access throughout the US to especially rural areas. So we are in the telecom industry. We thought $65 billion, that sounds like a good business opportunity. So the company reached out to me and tasked me with finding a suitable location for setting up manufacturing. So just like Yadi, I did the same. I went into the numbers. I didn't look at a map first. I just went into the numbers. Where was the logistical hubs? Where would it be easy to transport goods? Well, shipping opportunities, highway miles, plastic freight, because we're in the plastic industry. Manufacturing attractiveness, that's competitive wages, low production cost, utility bill would be low, and access to skilled labor was important. And then the economic potential of what we could see that came from the bipartisan infrastructure bill. So just like Yadi, we put all 50 states up on a scale from least feasible to the most attractive in terms of manufacturing and the other dimensions I talked about. You will see North Carolina up there as a runners-up. And then we displayed it out, logistic manufacturing, logistic attractiveness, manufacturing attractiveness on the scales here. And saw that Hawaii, Alaska, great places to go, but not that great to do manufacturing and moving goods around. But up there in the far end corner, we had some interesting states to look at. So North Carolina was deemed best in manufacturing, and Texas was best in terms of logistics. So we looked then at all of the 450 counties in those 3 states, excluding any county below 10,000 inhabitants. We deemed that to be simply too small to succeed. We would have trouble getting enough skilled labor in those counties. Then we looked at the industrial base for plastic manufacturing and manufacturing as a whole. And then we looked at production conditions in there, competitive wages, price of land, unemployment, and so forth. And then lastly, we took high crime rates to kind of counteract that, because of those two first things could screw you over to some areas where they're sure it would be probably very attractive in terms of low cost, but if you cannot set up a safe manufacturing plant, you might want to look elsewhere. So once again, we put it up we displayed out all 450 counties in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas. Industrial base as one parameter, and the production conditions on another. And then we looked again, and here we have, I put in some colors here to make it more visible. It's hard to see, but there's only one county from Tennessee. All of the yellow are North Carolinian counties, and red are from Texas. So at first, Gaston County didn't stand out as such. It was in the top lead, sure, but it wasn't like the one county to go to. However, we organized a tour, and there's a few familiar faces up there. Henry is up there, Paris and Alicia is up there as well. And went to North Carolina, to the greater Charlotte area to visit some sites. Went to Dallas, not Dallas here, but Dallas, Texas, and looked at probably 15 different sites overall. And picked out a place in Belmont, and the deciding factor was all of the help we got from the North Carolinian authorities. Just one quick remark here. We looked at the economic potential of Dallas versus Charlotte, and found out it was kind of like the same in terms of like the distance or proximity to the federal funds that was going to be appropriated. But as I said, like it was the local authorities, Gaston County EDC, the EDPNC, City of Belmont, Department of Commerce, that really helped along us figuring out what our opportunities was. While we were having negotiations over the lease property, they also instructed us on how to probably apply for local and state incentives in the competition we had with Texas. Texas, we didn't get as much help, so it was really down to the people that helped us out here. So here in January this year, Roy Cooper announced the U.S. expansion of Lindell Telecom, a fairly small company, but the first U.S. presence here, and we are now 4 people in Belmont. We hope to grow as much as we have done in Europe. So we're hopeful that there'll be many more microducts out there. So thank you.
Great job. Thank you. Thank you, Christian. That was a great presentation. As economic developers, we understand everything that goes behind the scenes of making a decision, but we don't always get to visualize that. So be able to see that and all the process that goes through it is really exciting to see. All right, up next we have Henry with Avison Young.
All right. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Thanks for having me out. I'm Henry Lobb, principal with Avison Young. We are a commercial real estate services firm in the greater Charlotte MSA. I'll keep it fairly short here. We'll spare you guys from the sales pitch on the back end of the deck. But why am I here? I'm here because I work in the private sector with companies like occupiers that have leased space here in the county and investors that are looking to build product and bring new investment into Gaston County. So I think my time will be more useful spent in the Q&A, so I'll keep this short, so hopefully we can get to that. But just a little about who Avison Young is. We think about ourselves as consultants in the private sector for occupiers, tenants, owners of real estate, or people that are looking to make investment into the greater Charlotte MSA. Gaston County in the past 3 to 5 years has really risen to the top of county and location within the greater MSA that people want to invest. Reasons being, basically the east side of 321 operates as a direct extension of our Charlotte Airport submarket. So it's a great logistical hub for people looking to service the greater MSA. And then when you get west of 321, you're right in the heart of a phenomenal labor community that supports the manufacturing industry that we have here and the future growth that we expect to see. So how Avison Young can help the folks in this room: if you own a piece of real estate, you want to understand how has my value changed in the past 5 years? It certainly has. If it's industrial zone, that value has increased substantially. We can help you with those valuation services. If you're a company that's looking to expand here in the community, if you simply want to save your project manager the time to pull a survey of options together, you pick up the phone, you call us. We have those availabilities over to you. We also can help if you own assets, you need management services of those assets, you need a resource, you don't want to hire the employee, you want to outsource that. Those are all things we can do. So again, I want to save everyone in this room my sales pitch. Hopefully we can get to some really good question and answers. But I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, introduce myself to the room, and we look forward to keep selling Gaston County and working with everyone in this room to continue to bring business here. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Henry. Since he's not going to do the sales pitch, I will. Avison Young still has a lot of buildings listed in Gaston County, so if you have an industrial user that can go in there, he can help you. We can help you on the incentives level. Solange can help you at the state level with workforce grants, other grants as well. So if you know any industrial users looking. All right. Next, we have Danielle with Duke Energy, who probably has one of the toughest jobs in the world right now. But she does a great job helping us out on these project visits. So, Danielle.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Yes, specifically this week, today, and going into next week, our team has a really tough job outside of supporting Gaston economic development and all of our economic development partners in recruiting new business and helping businesses expand. We also are tasked with responding to storms. And so I didn't prepare this, but thought it was very relevant given the conditions today. So the last update I received, we are one electric service provider, along with co-ops and municipalities that also serve this region. So anything I speak to is specific to us and our service territory. But right now, well, with Hurricane Helene, it was 1.7 million outages across the Carolinas, so North Carolina and South Carolina. As of last night, we had restored 1.1 million outages across the Carolinas. Of course, there's a lot of work to do, and we're working around the clock in order to do that. So it hurt my heart. I'm on our North Carolina Economic Development team. I support Gaston County, but also our Western North Carolina communities. And my enterprise team also supports Florida and South Carolina, along with the Midwest. And so, we're actively responding to that. And specifically in Western North Carolina and upstate South Carolina, unfortunately, it could take longer than the end of the week just because the infrastructure, the roads aren't in place to be able to physically get there to get the power lines back up. But our thoughts and our work around the clock to support those efforts are there. So again, I'm on the North Carolina Economic Development team, and I support Gaston County and 10 counties, going as far out west as Henderson County, also supporting most of the counties within the Charlotte Alliance or within the Charlotte region. And through our economic development organization, we're able to be successful by implementing our 4 pillars, which include site readiness, business recruitment, economic development, project management. That's really where my day-to-day comes in, where I'm just being responsive to the state, local, and regional economic development organizations to represent the energy value proposition when a new business is seeking to launch or expand in our region. And also technical support. So if there's any unique circumstance that requires more technical assistance, our team is the conduit to help connect with other people within our organization to respond to a prospective business's unique needs. So through that, through our pillars and our partnerships with our economic developers, as well as our local and state officials, we've been successful in, over the last few years, winning 95 projects, and those projects have represented close to 46,000 jobs and $33 billion in capital investment. I'll touch on at a high level. We do have what we call our site readiness program, which is us working with local economic developers to identify land that is has potential for an industrial recruitment, which is what our mission is. So if there's a greenfield site, and we have a program where we engage with site selection firms and local engineering firms in order to assess the weaknesses and strengths of a site and help with the marketing as a prospective industrial site. But we've had, over the last few years, 20 site readiness evaluations in the Carolinas. But overall, our goal is to support the community in attracting jobs and capital investment. And Duke Energy has been doing that now we've been in existence for over 100 years and started in the textile industry. And so it's really ingrained in our DNA, economic development. Here are just a few examples, pulling from that infographic of transformational projects that have been announced over the last couple of years that you may have seen in the headlines, including Toyota, VinFast, Macy's, Wolfspeed. But it doesn't show up all the way. Let's see if I need to. I did want to highlight, there we go. Of course, at Lindahl in Gaston County. These were more recently announced in 2024. Green New Energy Materials announced in Lincoln County, which is a battery component manufacturer, and Siemens, who announced an expansion of their Mecklenburg County location for power transformers. So those are just a few examples of many, many. And so now it's our job to help respond to the increasing demands of our region and our state and in Gaston County. We are seeing unprecedented amounts of growth in terms of the scale and the magnitude and the timing. And this graph represents the fact that over the next 10 years, we're expecting that our forecasted demand for electric is going to grow by 8 times what we thought it was just a couple of years ago. And the primary drivers for this demand growth include our economic development successes and wins, but also population growth. People want to live here, and electric vehicle adoption. And just for perspective on how much we would need to build, here's an example. Over the past 60 years, we've successfully built nuclear plants, coal plants, natural gas storage facilities, solar, et cetera. And we're going to need half of that we built and contracted for over the last 60 years. We need half of that in the next 10 years. And so that's going to be a significant feat. And we have filed our Carolinas Resource Plan, which outlines an all-above strategy that will incorporate diversity in generation assets, which will include advanced nuclear, natural gas, energy storage and solar, and more. And additionally, it will incorporate demand side management, so demand response, load curtailment, as well as energy efficiency. And speaking of energy efficiency, since we have a number of existing industries here, and since that will be critical to our overall strategy, I did want to introduce you, if you're not familiar, to some programs that we have. We call it our Smart Saver Energy Efficiency Program. My colleague Charity McPhail is in the audience here today, and I've also included her email address here. But essentially, it's an incentive and rebate program. So if you're doing an upgrade and you're choosing a more energy efficient product versus the standard, you could qualify for money back from Duke Energy. Also, this is applicable for our developers. for new construction as well. So our key takeaway is that our Carolina's resource plan plans to deliver a path to cleaner energy without sacrificing or compromising affordability and reliability, because our customers are requiring that it first and foremost be reliable and that we be competitively priced in order to attract business to Gaston County in North Carolina. And all of this working toward meeting the increased load demands while also decarbonizing. And our a final order is expected on our resource plan by the end of this year, so stay tuned.
Thank you, Danielle. Danielle's a huge asset to our team because we'll get projects from Solange or people at the state and, hey, you got 48 hours to finish this, and we know a building that might fit a foreign firm's needs but only has 3 megawatts, but they're needing 20 by next year, something crazy. So that's when we call Danielle, hey, we need this by tomorrow. And also she goes on a lot of site visits with us, and with some of those foreign firms, she'll have to do conversions of their demand there, and it's like a foreign language to me in Parish. So we're like, oh my gosh, so thankful for Danielle. So thank you. Last but not least, we have Emily Hansley from Gaston College. We also could not do what we do without her on the workforce side. So I'll let her kind of go through what she has.
I really didn't want to bring a PowerPoint. So my name is Emily Hansley, and I'm Customized Training Director with Gaston College. And it's the easiest. It's customized training. What do you need? Call us. We'll make it happen. That's our job. So I don't like to say no. That's probably the biggest thing that slows us all down. We try to dig through and find someone that can provide the solution that you need. So that's from continuous improvement training, safety training, vendor training, your automatic processes, anything that you need that you do inside your facility, Gaston College can provide. We do not use EDU level instructors. We use professional trainers, and you can thank your legislators for that, because normally it's either a free or low cost training for you, because my job is not, thankfully, to earn money for Gaston College. It is to support industry. So mine is the easiest out of everybody here, because my job title really explains what we do. And that's one of the things that everyone comes in on a visit is, what about the workforce? Well, whatever you bring in, we're going to train them to your standards. And so that's kind of how we support the whole entity here. So that's really everything that I have.
All right, thanks to our panelists. And now we're going to go ahead and move to the Q&A section. And for the sake of time, I did want to open it up to the audience. I have some questions, but I wanted to open it up to you in case someone needs to leave. If there's some burning question or something you'd like one of our panelists to do a little deeper dive. Is there anyone out there that has a question that you're curious about before I jump into this? Go ahead.
Yeah, this question for Danielle. You mentioned the amount of power required by 2030. Do we have the ability to meet that?
So yes, and it's all a part of our integrated resource plan, really. What that graph, that complicated graph represented was, in the fall of 2023, we identified advanced stage projects that we anticipate coming online, as well as those that have already committed. So signed a letter agreement with Duke Energy for power. And that plan considers that forecasted load growth and how we're going to be able to respond to meet that need. On that graph was also a dotted gray line above the green line. There is the potential for it to increase even more. So you may have seen a article where a lot of that's driven by EV battery, semiconductor groups, and data centers. And so there was recently an article published where companies like Amazon, Google, Nucor, and Microsoft have signed a memorandum of understanding with Duke Energy basically they acknowledge in order for us to be able to meet that forecasted demand that they're putting out there, that they're going to have to somehow contribute. So they've acknowledged. And so we're working on tariffs, which will require approval through the North Carolina Utility Commission, but will give an opportunity for companies to somehow participate in the financially or otherwise in the building of new infrastructure, whether that be advanced nuclear, et cetera. And the goal of that is to not have the ratepayers bear the burden of being able to bring online more assets to be able to respond to the need for these industries that are requesting it from us. We have a plan, so.
Hopefully everyone was able to hear that question. It was how Duke was going to be able to meet these increased needs in their territory. Does anyone else have a question? All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. So I have one for Henry. In the past 2 years, what's been your experience in the industrial real estate market in our region, and how has it impacted local growth?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so I'll maybe even take a step back on that to 4 years ago, prior to COVID. The industrial asset class in the commercial real estate lens was basically viewed as the fourth most favorable investment class of commercial real estate. It was the least desirable from an institutional investment standpoint. COVID, the impacts of COVID and the supply chain disruptions really brought to the forefront how important supply chain, the global supply chain is. And in a nutshell, that boiled down to people realizing that industrial facilities are extremely important because, one, they house distribution networks, and they house the manufacturers that are making all the products. So fast forward 4 years later, and the industrial asset class is now the most desirable institutional asset class. I lead with that because the investment into industrial product, the investment into Charlotte's a more emerging tier 2 investment market across the country from a commercial real estate standpoint, burgeoning on becoming a 1A investment market. Gaston County sits, as I mentioned earlier, just west of the Charlotte Airport. You're right in the heart. 321 connects directly through the heart of the county up to I-40. It checks all the boxes from distribution, manufacturing, and then we layer in everything we're talking about here. It's a phenomenal place for institutional investment. So how has that impacted the immediate market? It's impacted the market from the standpoint that cost of industrial real estate basically doubled in 4 years. And that is impacting tenants. That's impacting the renewal process on any leases. Tenants that are used to paying low $3 square foot rental rates, even down to sub $2 square foot rental rates, are now, if your building has traded in the past 3 to 5 years, you're probably looking at a rental rate that's going to be doubled or potentially even tripled as that comes up. So now this is happening everywhere in the Southeast, but it's certainly having an impact on day-to-day operations here, and it's something to be mindful of. As we don't see from our seat that investment is going to stop anytime soon. I mean, I think we all in this room are welcoming of that. We support it, but we also then have to recognize with that outside investment what is that going to cause and how is that going to affect the local market. In a nutshell, it's just making things more expensive. But in the grand scheme of things, you look at a warehouse here in Charlotte, a 60,000 square foot space. I'm just going to use general numbers here. But one of these new industrial buildings that are being built here in Gaston County, if you're leasing a 60,000 square foot space, that rent should be somewhere in the low to mid $8 a square foot range. Okay, that rent up in New Jersey or New York, that's going to be into the low 20s. So while things are getting more expensive here, in the grand scheme of things, we are just pushing the frontier of where rental rates on the industrial sector are going to go. So what we recommend, if you're a tenant, you think you're going to be in your building for 15 years, might make sense to lock that in. But you can give me a call later on that.
Thank you for that. I have a question for Emily. You have worked with many foreign firms that have located in Gaston County over the years. What changes have you seen in workforce needs?
I think the biggest change has been the advanced manufacturing with the robotics, all the automation, needing higher skill level associates. That's really the biggest thing, and we've been really busy catching up to all of that. So the other thing is a shortage, of course, in the skilled trade is your maintenance techs, electricians, all the stuff that goes back with automation. That's the biggest skills issue right now.
That's great. And I think Gaston College and our other university located here in Gaston County are huge partners in this, and their ability to pivot and to develop these workforce training programs are a huge asset and one that separates us from our competitors, I do believe. Does anyone in the audience have any questions that have popped up during this conversation? If not, if everyone has a few more minutes, I have a couple more questions. Christian, what are some of the positive determining factors that played a role in choosing Gaston County versus other counties or states?
So, as I said before, we did a lot of data analytics on figuring out how to sort it down to only a few counties, and what it eventually got down to was the relationship we had with the economic development agencies. We were close to getting to Dallas. We went there, looked at 10 different sites, but there wasn't any responsiveness and any appetite there for just a small European company. I guess they were filled up with other projects as well. But the EDC here was the local and state EDC helped us figuring out the entire process. And as newcomers, it's very, very important to get the whole process laid out, because that is very foreign to you when you are foreign.
Can totally understand that. Solange, what top site selection factors, including availability of sites and buildings, labor costs, availability of skilled workers, incentives, utility costs, power demand, highway accessibility, and so forth, which of these factors do you see as the biggest challenge in global business recruitment for the state of North Carolina and also for Gaston County?
Yeah, so all of those things are kind of these delicate balances. I really think of economic development as both science as well as an art, and depending on the company, they're going to balance or weigh one of those factors a little bit differently. But what remains the same in site selection is going to be product availability, so the land itself, the utilities, and then the workforce. I think that the incentives tend to play, in fact, a smaller role in economic development. The business has to make sense first. I will say for Gaston County, I think a benefit is certainly the expertise and level of care that this community gives to the manufacturing community. I would venture to say, and I love all 100 of my county children the same, but I do think that Gaston County does pay particular attention to the manufacturing community and does so very well, very responsive in terms of recruiting and expanding business here. What's going to be a deciding factor, and I don't think it's just for Gaston County, it truly is across the state in the Southeast, is going to be availability of utilities, especially as it relates to our manufacturing community. The reality is if the power isn't there, then they can't get the business done. And so we do really work very carefully with our energy partners to make sure that we don't overpromise and underdeliver, that we make sure that there's a plan and that we communicate expectations very well, so that the folks who are taking good looks at Gaston County or otherwise are aware of what the ramp up will be, what that cost will be, and how we can support the business all throughout that process.
That's great. I have a question for Danielle. What are some of the larger initiatives that Duke is working on that'll have a positive impact on business recruitment for our region?
I think one of them is what we've covered, which is our decarbonization effort. Our goal is to be carbon neutral by 2050. And for North Carolina, that's supported by our bipartisan legislation of the House Bill 951, which also is in alignment with decarbonization by 2050. So when I'm responding to Gaston EDC on some of these requests for information from prospective businesses, one of the questions that I get is, how can you help us meet our carbon reduction goals or our corporate sustainability goals? And we're able to very positively respond to that just through what our integrated resource plan is, as well as some of our renewable offerings. Also, that transition the approach to it is very thoughtful in keeping the rates affordable and competitive, because the businesses I'm responding to, reliability and competitive pricing is priority after knowing that they can get the power and that it can meet their timelines. Yeah, so and we do offer incentive programs also. In addition to the Smart Saver incentives I shared, for new businesses that are intending to add net new load of at least a megawatt, we've recently gotten approval for an incentive program. So if you meet 1 megawatt threshold, if you are bringing jobs and capital investment to the communities that satisfy the needs, there's an opportunity for energy discounts to the bill as well. So I think both of those things will be helpful.
That's great. All right, this will be our last question, unless there's an additional question from the audience. And Henry, this is for you, so I'm hoping we're going to end this on a high note here. I'm going to roll the dice with this one. What are your insights on the real estate economy in the next year for our region?
Yeah, I think I touched on that. I think in general, I'm bullish. I think what a lot of my past 9 to 12 months from my seat has been spent answering the question of how have interest rates affected, the real estate market, right? That's the question I get asked the most. And the rates have directly had an impact on overall purchase prices for assets. It's impacted that, for sure. But really the greater impact that it's had has been on the overall corporate spending that we've seen in the economy. And I am bullish that as we sit here today with what's occurred, the Fed decision that they made 3 weeks ago, we are anticipating a fairly robust 2025. I can speak for my firm. We've been out of space in our office for the past 18 months. We've added 2 more people. They're sitting at, coffee desks in the corners of the office. Our company has made a strategic decision that corporate spending was off the table for the past 24 months. Last week, we get an email, we're relooking at that. I've seen multiple projects come through the state, through the local counties that have toured, have sent us RFPs we've responded to that have gone nowhere in the past 24 months. From my seat, that is a direct, impact on that deal. That's been, someone internally has said we have a need, right? Then that deal, they send the project manager out to vet the market, get the numbers. Those numbers come back in, goes up the ladder to the C-suite. The decision's made for whatever reason. We don't need to do this now. We're going to put that off. And I think from my seat, I've seen that 50 times over the past 24 months. So you mix in the pent-up corporate spending that I believe is there, that's going to hit the market in 25, mixed with what I mentioned earlier about how Charlotte, our MSA, Gaston County, under that umbrella, has really caught the attention of the institutional investors. Speaking to 2 projects we have available in the county right now. We've got a 471,000 square foot cross-dock building on the backside of Oaks Commerce. That equity partner on that is the Carlyle Group. Carlyle Group was not investing in Gaston County 5 years ago on a speculative project. Carlyle Group is one of the largest world commercial real estate investment firms. They're here in Gaston County. We've got another project, Northwest Gateway off Jenkins Road in the heart of Gastonia. That investor's out of Birmingham, Alabama. All right? that investor never really left their little backyard of Birmingham for 10 years because they could do every deal, or prior to 10 years ago, because they could do every deal they wanted to. But now Charlotte's even caught the eyes of that. So we're continuing to see that. We're continuing to see quality product built here in the county, and that's going to continue to come, in my opinion, when we enter next year and some of this corporate spending can, get reallocated, and hopefully from all of our seats, business gets booming again.
Well, thank you, Henry, and you did not disappoint. As we know, we have a well-oiled machine here in Gaston County that's forward-facing. We are prepared, and we are ready to collaborate on any new projects and excited to welcome these new organizations to Gaston County. So if you will join me in thanking our panelists for being here today.